Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosho, and tonight we'll be looking at a topic, enhancing financial literacy for HR professionals. And our facilitator for tonight is Tomi Kembi, who has become one of our regular, consistent facilitators, always eager, willing to share knowledge, insights that can benefit us, HR professionals in general. Let me just read his profile all the same. Ladies and gentlemen, Tomi is an associate chartered Institute of Personnel Management and a process-driven human resource professional with over about 8 years experience spanning retail, consulting, hospitality, renewable energy, and internet service providers. We can say ICT. He's known for his end-to-end approach. Tomi focuses on designing HR systems that are structured, people-centered, and aligned with business growth objectives. He began his career as an HR generalist in the hospitality industry before advancing to the role of HR manager at the renewable energy company, where he built foundational HR structures for a growing team. Today, Tomi serves as HR coordinator at FiberOne, one of Nigeria's leading ISP with a workforce of over 600 employees. And in this role, he drives large-scale HR processes, employee engagement, and enforce operations at scale, expanding his influence from startup agility to complex corporate complexity. Beyond HR, Tom is passionate about financial literacy and professional development, and his mission is to equip young professionals with the skills, structures, and clarity they need to thrive and flourish. He attempts to bridge the gap between education and industry while developing next generation of future-ready talent. His expertise in performance management, compensation benefit, process optimization, and so on and so forth, challenge conventional thinking. His work encourages professionals to see wealth not only in money, but also in network, skills, and of course, intentional decision-making. Speaking to us tonight, sharing with us, leading this conversation on the very tracy for HR. Please, let's welcome, celebrate, receive Tomi Kembi. You have the floor, my brother.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much once again, sir, for the privilege to be here. Good evening, everyone. I trust you had a restful evening and a lovely week at the office. At least the good news is that holiday starts tomorrow, so there's adequate time to rest for most of us. So you're welcome to HR Mentorship once again. I want to first begin by appreciating the team for the privilege to be here and for always granting me audience. So we are going to be treating a very interesting topic today, which is enhancing financial literacy for HR. And in this topic, the things I aim to cover, if time permits, basically address certain questions, but basically 3 key things, right? We are going to look at value, speak to scarcity, and speak to target audience. And but let's see how things go from there. And so when we are speaking towards financial literacy, most times it's always a very sensitive conversation. Very sensitive because it speaks to a very unique aspect of people's life, right? And it's something that people are not always so open about. However, one of the things I've observed and one of the things that I've realized my journey in life is the fact that for every individual, there are about 3 to 5 key places where growth is very important. And there has to be a balance across those 5 areas for one to say that the person is whole and complete. And some of these areas are career, right? And for career, for students, it can be academic. We have finance, we have our spiritual aspects, we have our relationship aspects, right? And then, of course, we have the personal development as a whole. Now, before I delve into speaking to what financial literacy is and the likes, my focus today is first to speak to us, first as individuals, before I speak to us as HR professionals or speak to us as HR personnel, because if we are being honest, sometimes we can be overwhelmed or we can get so overwhelmed with the position we hold that we sometimes forget that we are first humans, right? And knowing that when we speak to financial literacy, there are a lot of factors involved and it is quite difficult to address all at a go because you are dealing with people. And when you're dealing with people, you have to consider personality, you have to consider exposure, environmental exposure. You have to consider a whole lot of things. You have to consider perception. What I'm just going to practically be focused on today is speak to key foundational areas, right, that at least can set us on the pedestal to think more, to prepare more, right, or to begin to consider these aspects of financial literacy and consider these aspects of our life. And then if there be any need to now take it a notch higher, right, we are all in the HR mentorship group together. So you can feel free to reach out to me, right? At least from the cues that we pick from those points, we can use it to now say, okay, let's have a one-on-one with Tommy so that at least I can help myself or figure myself out, because I'm more about people figuring themselves out. So as an introduction, right, I decided to take some research. So I'm just going to be speaking through the slide, but I want to speak more to us on a one-on-one basis so that we can all relate to what we want to speak about. Now, how many of us here feel like the best way to become wealthy, right, especially with the reality of the economy and the likes, is by creating multiple streams of income? We can just respond by just showing an emoji or something. We can just display an emoji. Okay, thank you. I can see that. Thank you, surprise. But if do we have more people having such a thought that one of the ways to become wealthy is by creating multiple streams of income? Okay, thank you so much for Chukwuemeka. So I want to ask us a question. If the route to becoming wealthy is by creating multiple streams of income, how come there is a research that states this, that more than half of working adults worldwide struggle with daily financial and daily finances despite having steady source of income? So I'm not saying that having multiple streams of income is bad. No, what I'm saying is that before you even think about building multiple streams of income, what is most important, or what is much more important, right, is first of all creating structure, right? So it is more about building a strong financial structure, right, rather than building multiple streams of income. Now, when we talk about building financial literacy, the journey begins from coming to a point of vulnerability as a foundation, sitting down to understand your reality, right? From that reality, you come to a point where you need to begin to map out clarity, and from that clarity, growth is bettered. Now, the reality of globalization, one of the things that globalization did to us is the fact that for most of us, it became difficult for us to be vulnerable. It became difficult for us to be honest and open up, right? Especially because we see our peers in different economies doing so well, and we feel like, oh, I should be doing that too. But we keep forgetting that even for those categories of people, there are a lot of factors that could also influence that. They have exposure, they have their financial system, they have their economy to consider, right? And so these are also part of the factors that we need to consider when we are talking about financial literacy or wanting to even sit down to think about building financial wealth, right? Now, obviously also for most of us, we have people that we observe from afar, right? And we really wish, oh, if I could just sit in the room with Dangote or sit in the room with Anotedola or one of the top financial people, right? Just have got disconnected was when I was talking about the place where I got disconnected, right? Was when I talked about the fact that most of us have that feeling like, oh, if we should have a sit down with the rich people, right? If we are in the same room with the rich people, then probably they could release some sort of financial secrets to us that would make us scale. But the truth is, the higher you grow up the ladder, the more difficult of a time you can have to say you want to begin to mentor people coming up, right? And beyond that, for most of them, some of them stumbled into it. And this is what I mean by stumbling into it. They weren't so sure of what they were doing, right? It wasn't like they had mentors, right? They just kept trying and failing, and then they just got there. So very few of them really sat down to really understand and assess their journey to say, okay, I did ABC to get to XYZ. And so one of the reasons why I like process coaching is the fact that it gives you the opportunity to want to sit down whilst you are in a thing, right, to try to figure out what is working. So process is not basically about the result only, but most importantly, about the journey, right? And that's what I want to do for us today, right? Society has made it difficult, right, for us to admit when we need help, like I have clearly said, right? Especially when it comes to money, right? How many of us would be willing, for example, just use emojis to respond. If I should say that, how many of us are willing to disclose what is in their bank accounts right here? How many of us would be willing to disclose it? Just display an emoji if you are willing. If you are not willing, just enter the chat box and write no. I have a feeling there'll be a lot of no. So did this see what happened? You see, I'm seeing a lot of no already, right? So that's part of what I'm saying, that to come to that point of vulnerability is very difficult for a lot of people. And rightly so, we can't really blame people. The world focuses so much on competition than collaboration, right? And the truth is, in the process of growth, vulnerability is the foundation. So I'll take that again. In the process of growth, vulnerability is the foundation. So let's start with this question. Can everyone be wealthy? Let's take a pause and think about it. Can everyone be wealthy? Is it possible for everyone to be wealthy? I want responses, please. I want us to utilize the chat box a lot. It's $1 million question. And even I myself don't have the answer, right? But I believe what I can say, and this is the reason why I myself don't have the answer. The truth is, the reality is that our resources are scarce, and the people that are using that resources are more than the resources itself. However, this is what I can answer, that there are tools to becoming wealthy, and the people who apply those tools can develop and begin a wealth journey. So let me repeat that. People who apply the tools to becoming wealthy can begin a wealth journey. What am I saying in essence? The tools that build wealth are the same. However, the results may differ because of a lot of factors. You have personality as a factor, you have discipline as a factor, you have clarity as a factor. We even have purpose as a factor to a definition of wealth. We have purpose as a factor too to say, okay, we have mindset too to determine what the result or the outcome of wealth would look like for people. Why did I say this? Because to a very large extent also, there's also something called mental models, right? If you grow up in an environment where there are a lot of people who having hundreds of thousands, right, was wealth to them, you will never really consider yourself scaling to millions, right? If you have people who, what they define as wealth is, as long as I can pay my daily bills, right? You would never really see wealth beyond paying your daily bills. So that is the reason why the question of everyone being wealthy is, it's a question that has a response towards perspective. So from my own personal research, I'm not saying this is the generic one, but to a very large extent, even further research still has a way of tying wealth creation to these three key things that I mentioned there, right? And what are the three key things? Purpose, right? Scarcity and personality. These three key things brings you to the beginning of the journey of wealth. Purpose, scarcity, personality. And what is that? So in purpose, it's more about what problem are you solving, right? In scarcity, it's more about what is the urgency of the problem. And then when you're speaking about personality, it's more about where exactly are you serving? What problems are you solving? What is the urgency of the problem? And where exactly are you serving? So before I move forward, let's take a think break. And this is the think break I have for us, for people who are bold enough to respond in the chat room. What are the top 3 reasons why you need money? Let's have it. We are going to be on this break for 2 minutes because I want us to respond. I want to say our responses. What are the top 3 reasons why you need money? Investment. This is a vague response, but it will pass. To pay bills. I like you, Jerry Rachel. Go straight to the point. Joke, for your welfare. Can you define your welfare? Is it bone straight? You know? Okay, someone says Shenta. Agents are doing some people real shaggy. For someone to have said shelter, the person is just making money for landlord and bills. Someone says soft life. Okay. I'm seeing survival. Fantastic. Now, can I tell us that to a very large extent, our purpose for needing money, which is these top 3 things that we've listed, even though each of us just mentioned one thing, to a very large extent, drives how we go about money. Future. How do you mean future? Do you care to elaborate a bit? Kingdom advancement. Evangelist Kunle. Kingdom advancement, food and vacation. Fantastic. So thank you so much. First generation wealth. But we're in the 2000th generation. No? Are we still doing first generation wealth? I like you, J. Julie. Money is a necessity for human dignity. Take your thumbs up. Where's the emoji? take your thumbs up. When you have money, right, there are some still finish that wouldn't happen. Okay, so let's come back to it, right? Exchange of value. Who is this politician? Politician Michael just went to carry on big English and dropped there. Okay, let's bring it to reality. Now, looking at all the answers that we've all given, let's look at this. I intentionally asked that question, why do you need money? Right? Because to a very large extent, your why drives majority of what you do. Right? Now, if your answer is to pay bills alone, money will always feel scarce. Because as your income grows, your bills also grows. In fact, it's what is called lifestyle inflation. Right. So if it's all just about paying bills, rent is due, even the money itself is not enough. So you have to start squeezing out how to pay rent, how to pay for food, how to do this, how to do that. You'll notice that before the money even enters, the money has finished. If I have a witness, let me see emojis. I want to be sure that I'm speaking to people. Like I'm striking some chord. Right. For example, there are some people that today is the 4th, right? And the money has finished. Last month money has finished, right? Now, doesn't that mean that we'll stop paying bills? Not necessarily. But because of the fact that we've just seen money as a tool to majorly just solve bill problems. Yes, there are some of us that plan to actually multiply our funds, but the question is, how do I even go about it in the first place, right? And I'm very sure some of us have really gone into the videos of, the way to build wealth is to pay yourself first. And you're wondering, how do I pay myself first? For some people, they have bills to pay, they have bases to reconcile, then they have money that should survive them or that should sustain and protect them to the end of the month. And they are praying that emergency funds from family or impromptu expenses doesn't come up. Right? These are some of our realities. So the major question is, how can I shift my focus? Because some of us, it's not necessarily lifestyle inflation, it's just bill optimization, right? How can I shift my focus from just paying bills to actually growing funds, right? One opportunity we have as HR is the fact that we sit at the center of problems. We solve problems daily. What we just need to do is to carry our mindsets, is to carry our focus from the way we solve problem daily to see how we can apply it to wealth creation, right? And most times when you are doing these things, the two very difficult questions to answer, especially when it comes to generating value, is number one, what problem can I solve to multiply my funds? But the first question I want to ask you before you even ask yourself this question is, what structures have you built to even prepare for the funds that will come in? Because if you've not built a structure that brings you to that brings a form of constraint and brings you to a form of discipline that you need to work on, right? The truth is, no matter how much you earn, you still continue repeating that cycle, right? It was the writer of Atomic Habits, James Clear, that said that you do not rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. Meaning that I want to save 5 setting the targets alone. We're about building a system that in place to ensure that when this money comes in, right? So what structure am I putting in place such that when this money comes in, right, it stays? Now, for that conversation, every other thing I'll be saying on this slide, I just want us to pay attention. If you feel you still need a one-on-one sit down for us to look at it together, you can reach out to me personally. But really, because again, like I said, these kinds of topics are more personal than generic. So the best we can do when having a generic class like this is to just address key pain points, key issues, and shed light on questions that can provide answers when we come to that inner room to look at it and try and solve this problem, right? So basically, it's just about that. Now, I want us to look at something, and I want us to respond to this. Have you ever been in a situation whereby you need something so badly and you didn't have money to get it? And then you sat down and you were thinking, how can I raise money to get this thing? And you thought about it so much to the point that you started getting ideas and options of how you can even, what's the word? Ideas of how you can even get this money. If I have a witness, let me just see your emojis or response on the chat. Let's see your emojis. Doesn't mean I'm the only one that I've been in that situation, that when I need money for certain things that I need so badly, I begin to think about how to get it. Okay, thank you, Linda. So that tells you that sometimes it's not necessarily that you don't have the capacity to build wealth. Basically, what you need is to be able to tie every segment of your wealth to a particular purpose and build a structure around it. Now, having said that, let's now move to the next thing, which is what? The gift of scarcity. Now, this sounds cliche, and it's more or less like, how would you say scarcity is a gift? But this is something. Sometimes scarcity reveals the value or the problem that we can solve and make money out of it. That is the reason why scarcity is a gift. And I'll give typical examples. Why do you think people pursue Apple so much? One of the major reasons why people pursue Apple so much, especially for Nigeria, is for status. I've been in interviews, right, where there was a guy that came for the interview. He was a salesperson. And at the interview, we were asking him questions. Yes, he was answering, but personally, I wasn't so enthusiastic about the guy. I didn't feel the guy would last long. And then when I was done, I was sitting with the MD and I asked him that, so what's your consideration of this guy? I was almost about to jump the gun to say, we shouldn't consider him. And the response that the MD gave me shocked me. Guess what he said? He said that he observed the guy, that he can see that the guy is using an iPhone and the guy has a car, that if he's not a successful salesperson, he wouldn't be using those two things. But guess what? Even NAPEP people now get iPhone. But if we are being realistic and we look into the intent or the foundation as to why they have that iPhone, it's just class of feeling that status that, okay, we can have this thing. That's one of the major reasons why some people get it. I once had my sister run reputable companies that she had to visit certain class. That's why she uses the iPhone. But for the purpose of status, right? Now, we ensure that that money remains in the ecosystem, that you opt out of just to do what? Is to swap in the system. So you are stuck in the status game, either you like it or not. So what is Apple doing? Apple has found out that people always like to belong. People are eager to belong. And they took that desire and turned it into a product. So business people sit on two major aspects. It's either that business thrives on status, right? That means your wants, your desires, or their business will strive on what? Necessities, right? Basic needs. And that is a perfect example of Dangote. Please mention something that you need for your daily need, either directly or indirectly, that Dangote is not involved in. Sugar, salt, flour, cement. So what has he done? He has built a system in scarcity for our daily need. So no matter how much we want to ignore, we can't necessarily ignore him. That makes us see that scarcity sometimes, or most times, is one of the foundational needs for us to begin to build wealth. So it means that as an HR professional, you want to scale up, you want to begin to build financial wealth. One of the first things you need to do is sit down and find a problem that concerns plenty people. And this is the funny thing, which is one of the principles of the Bible. So one of the principles of the Bible is service, right? And if you look at it intently and look at it critically, success and wealth grows in service. In the same vein, the way people create wealth is by serving people. And how do they serve people? By finding problems that is generic to plenty people. So if you want to build wealth, you have to look for a problem that is much more important and that is a general problem for people in your circumference, for people in your category, for people generally. When you found a problem that has a lot of people finding a solution and you have the solution, you found the opportunity to build wealth. So that's why I said, while personal money issues may be small, challenges faced by organizations and employees present real opportunities for wealth creation. Now, what we've mostly done, which is the next thing we're talking about, which is what? Finding your class, right? Is that most times we've mostly chased people's class. I'll give you a typical example. Any HR that wants to try to think of ways to build wealth now, let me tell you what they will typically do. People's CV are bad. I want to start offering CV services. Now, there are now so many CV services, and 80% of them are not creating value. 80% of them cannot even teach people what to look out for, to even identify if the CV revamp that they've done is quality enough, or if the person has just taken their money. Now, that market has become so saturated, and guess what? AI has come to sit on that market. Now, a lot of people are not making money from it again. They're looking for the next big thing. There was a time where what people sat on to make money was recruitment. So they'll tell you, oh, I'm a recruitment agency, come submit your CV. When I get job for you, you pay me money. Or when I get job, right, we'll have an agreement with the organization, your first salary or a certain percentage from your first salary will be paid to me. And that is how they find the solution. But there are a lot of other problems that we can create. And I do not want to be so far to quickly expose some because I'm also working on some. Go and find your own problem. Don't chase my class. Go and find your problem and try to see how you can solve it and build a structure of wealth around it. Now, what's the third thing? Finding your class. Speaking to target audience. And I've already given an example that most times what we do is that we follow the crowd. And that's the reason why when we follow the crowd, most times we get stuck and we struggle with what they struggle with. And if there's one book I like so much, it's the book that is called Blue Ocean Strategy, because it speaks to how you can position your market or you can position your problem of the value you want to solve in such a way that people cannot be your competitors, but they rather collaborate with you. What problem can you solve? So I want us to take a pause. Looking at blue ocean strategy, looking at everything I've said so far, let's take a pause here. Let's take a break. Let us write down the problem or anybody on this call. I'm going to wait for 2 minutes for us to take that short exercise. Yes, I said blue ocean strategy. So if we've done that, let's just put in the comment section that we've done that. Let's show an emoji. I'm waiting for our responses. So this is where I said I'll try to make the class as practical as possible, right? And what I like to do a lot is to bring people to a point of vulnerability to try to figure out and try to create questions that will push them to a place of clarity. Now, when you've come to that point of clarity, then we can have a sit down to say we want to see how we can build growth structures around that clarity that you now begin to launch out and ideate on. So can we just signify if we've done the small tasks that I've just given us, that given our level of experience, given our exposure to our career journey, this I can solve. Given the problem I've seen recurrently, these are the problems I think I can solve. We can comment on the chat session by writing done if you've done it. For some of us, if we are saying, oh, I'll do it later, you may never do it. So this may be the best time for you to put a pen to paper and just put down something. So they said that nobody is doing the exercise because I've never seen any emoji or chat. Okay, so the question now becomes, how do I build a system? Or how do I build a structure? So I'm just going to identify key things. And the exercise was that you should sit down and think about your career journey up until this point and try to figure out the problems you think you can solve with your career journey and with your skills that you've acquired so far. So I've mentioned building a structure around your wealth. And the first question is, how do I build this structure? So some of the things you need to identify first is you need to identify your expenses and also need to identify your savings, right? What are your expenses? What are your savings? That's the first thing you need to identify, right? When you identify these things, you now need to look at the reality of your income. When you've done these three things, right, we can now come in to now say, yeah, let's have a one-on-one to me so that I can help us navigate it from that part. I'm not going to give us everything. This is value also. This is scarcity that I'm talking about. HR consultancy is vague. Bukola, what aspect of HR consultancy? So let me move forward because of time. Recruitment. Please don't let us enter that conversation right now. It's going to take a lot. All right, it's going to take a lot. Now, I'm I'm going to be speaking to people now for certain people. And what am I saying? All through my conversation up until this point, I'm sure that there are people who are probably even just new in the career space, and they may be feeling like, oh, everything I've said so far is more or less focused on more or less focused on people that have at least gained some form of experience, in the HR space. What about me that I'm just starting out? I'm just 3 months into HR. I'm just 6 months into HR. I've not even found my foot. I'm still trying to count my toenails, not even talking of finding my feet to say I want to solve a problem. What do I do? How can I begin to build financial literacy for myself? Right? And that's the reason why I started with speaking to building a financial structure and what it means to build a financial structure, right? Now, what does it mean to build a financial structure? First, like I said, identify your expenses, identify your sources of income, right? When you do that, let's have a one-on-one. Let's sit down and let's see how we can help you review it, right? The second part is pay yourself first. And let me now address this pay yourself first conversation that is flying up and down that we hear a lot, especially even when we listen to a lot of financial literacy videos. They'll say, pay yourself first, pay yourself first. Now, what are they talking about? Now, one of the things that is constant, right, is inflation. Inflation is always constant. It is never fixed. It is constant. If your money is just sitting on a place where all they are doing is taking from it, you are not doing yourself any favor. And it's also talking about paying yourself first. It means pay into the future. And how do you pay into the future? Look for systems that help you multiply your wealth. What do I mean? Find ways to invest. I'm trying as much as possible to be as simplistic as possible. But if you need further clarity, like I said, it's more of a one-on-one than a big structure like that. Find ways to put your money in things that would grow your money. So if, for example, you have debts, you have bills to pay, right, and you can, even the savings that you have in Gonsafe, they're still removing charges, create a fourth section, call it investments, right? Look for places where you are dropping a certain portion, small, right, on a monthly basis, even if it is 5,000 for a start or 10,000. As long as it's something you can consistently continue, just be putting it in a place of investment consistently, right? Whilst you are still doing your day-to-day expenses. That is what it actually means to pay yourself first, right? In doing that, one way or the other, you are gradually doing what? Building an emergency fund, right? Another thing you should avoid at all costs is lifestyle inflation. Now, how can you avoid it? See, like I always tell people, if you enter Super or Small London to go and carry a shoe of 5,000 and you take care of it well, and you stand beside somebody that is wearing that same type of shoe and it is 50,000, as long as you take care of it well, the person would never know that you're wearing a 5,000 shoe and you don't need to tell them. So what does it mean? Find places where you can get affordability and take care of your assets. Find places where you can get affordability and take care of your assets. It's as simple as that. If you have one shoe or two shoes, take care of it well. You know what I did? So buying shoes is expensive. What did I do? I went to meet a shoemaker and I asked him to help me make a very solid sandal. That sandal, I made it in, I think, 2017. Yes. When the sandal was done in 2017, I think by 2018, the sole was gone. Because the leather of the sandal is still good, I took it back to the shoemaker to add another sole. I'm still wearing the sandal to today. If I don't tell you that I've been wearing that sandal since 2017, you would never know. So it means that what matters is taking care of your assets. The other thing you need to also do is you need to begin to learn to cultivate relationships that helps you create things cheaper than buying them. Build relationships that helps you create things cheaper than buying them. I'm not going to say more than that in those things, right? But I think I've given you enough tips And for ladies, you catch it faster, right? I've given enough tips on this level, so I don't want to stay too long on this mountain. We have to move. Now, while you are building your financial structure, you also need to build yourself, right? As you are growing in this field, test many waters, make as many mistakes as you can make, test plenty waters. Use it to identify your strengths, use it to identify your weakness, use it to know the places that you should avoid when you can avoid. So as you go up the ladder, if you know that you don't like recruitment, you already know that when you want to start having members, it is recruitment you are putting that member on. However, have enough knowledge in recruitment to make sure that when the member is doing rubbish, you can identify that the member is doing rubbish. So the fact that you don't like a skill doesn't mean you should not know enough about it to identify that quality comes out from that skill. Let me repeat that again. The fact that you do not like a skill doesn't mean that you don't know so much about the skill that you cannot identify quality from that skill. So identify your area of strength, develop yourself on it, right? Create and gain mastery in it such that you can begin to consult with it, train with it, or freelance in it. So you can either get further wealth by training or by freelancing. Let me just stop it there. Now, what's the next thing you should do? Upskill. If certification is what is going to make you get more money, get the certification, Ngozi. And how do you get the certification? If the money for the certification is high, find out the frequency. So for example, say IPM happens 4 times in a year. It doesn't mean you must do it at that 4 times in a year. If it will take you 6 months to pay for one exam, plan that you do it 2 times in a year. And you know that from January, you are saving a portion of the money from January to May. That's how to do it. Let me let you know something. Growth is personal, right? It's time specific, and it is your time specific. And you should do that by understanding your journey, understanding your process, understanding your capacity, and creating a structure around your capacity. If you know you cannot afford a training in the next 3 months, you don't have to take it. If it can happen in the next 6 months, plan towards the next 6 months. Let me tell you something that can sound funny. As little as my perfume, I already know that it can last me for 2 to 3 months. When I'm planning perfume in my finances, I plan it for 3 months time, and I break the cost of 3 months into a monthly basis. It's as little as that. So track yourself, identify things that works for you, and build a structure around it. It is not about gaining 20 years of experience, right? But it's about gaining adequate work experience that you can use to trade for value. With this, I leave us with this. Money responds to clarity, structure, and target audience, just the same way HR systems does. Money gravitates towards your mindset. Money gravitates towards your thoughts. Money gravitates towards your perception. Money gravitates towards the purpose for which you are even trying to save it for or build it for, right? So, senior HRs, at this point, what are you looking out for? How can you leverage the data and network that you've built to make wealth for you? We can have a one-on-one conversation about that. And for people just coming up, just like how we've addressed, begin to identify areas you think you need to build up on. Seek advice, seek consultation. You can reach out to me. I'm on the HR mentorship group too. Enter my DM, let's talk. It is only webinar that is free. I have to create wealth by giving value. So if you are coming for value, come with your pocket full. Right? But really and truly, right? You need to sit down to really figure out what the value is that you can create at this point. And if you feel that you haven't come to a point where you can share value, don't feel bad. Begin to build structures and begin to identify areas of growth. Like I always said, and like I said in my last training here, I said that there are 2 kinds of growth. There's upward growth and there's horizontal growth. There's vertical growth and there's horizontal growth, right? Horizontal growth is having a touch of skills from different spheres of industries, right? Knowing a little of finance, knowing a little of operations, and gathering that skill together to make yourself better and have an holistic knowledge approach. If you are looking towards consulting or HR process creation, that's the kind of growth you should focus more on, right? Why vertical growth is okay. I'm an HR generalist right now. What are the certifications I need to do to become an HR manager? That is upward growth, right? So identify the kind of growth that suits you well and create a structure towards building it. Now, having said all this is the point I said. Thank you for coming to my Tech Talk. Feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to connect with me. I remain your humble host and your ever-learning young boy here, Tommy Kembi. Thank you so much once again for the team. Thank you so much, Prof. Oluyemi Adeosun, for the privilege always. And I say that you can take the floor now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Tommy, for doing justice to the topic of tonight. Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, do you have quick contributions, comments, want to share something around the subject matter tonight? Please raise your hand so that we can yield the floor to you, give you opportunity to share. You also have maybe specific questions for our facilitator, our speaker this evening. Please do well to also indicate by show of hands, and we can grant you access to unmute. Thank you so much. That was an excellent session. Checking to see if I will see hands up. I'm still checking. I have like 2 minutes to indicate. I'm very happy to wrap up. Just checking. Also, let's check the chat box if there's any specific questions or comments. So all I see is people largely eulogizing you and appreciating you. So I'll drop, somebody asked the question now. I will drop the response on the chat group so that you can pick the information. Apparently, we should have dropped some of this information earlier. Oh, at last, I finally get to see a hand. Ijama, please, you can go ahead with your contribution, sir. Good evening, my brother. Quite a while. And confirm whether you are in Nigeria or Canada, Ijoma, just to be safe. Ijoma, you have the floor.
Ijoma, you can go ahead and unmute. You are still muted.
Up by accident. It's only in virtual reality that you will not know that your hands are up. In reality, physical reality, if you put up your hands, it will pain and signal you to either go ahead with your question or put it down. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, at this intersection, it's time to verbalize our appreciation for our facilitator, Tony Ken. Finally, you can speak, sir. Hello, Ijoma, you can go ahead, please.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. The point at which I raised my hand was when network threw me off, and I've been, struggling to come back in now, but I'm happy to be back here. I just wanted to say a very big thank you to Tommy. Like you said, he did justice to the subject. The only comment from my side is that as HR professionals, we really need to be able to differentiate between assets and liabilities. I think he spoke very loudly to it in the course of his presentation. And why I want to emphasize it or reiterate it again is that a lot, let me not say everybody, but not less than 50-60% of HR professionals are people who probably found themselves in HR probably when they were running away from mathematics, from accounting, with the exception of people like Dr. Liami, who is an economist himself. I think that there are a lot of HR people who feel that the business of managing people does not involve numbers. And by that very token, they do not take very strong interest or do not build capability around mastering figures, mastering numbers, knowing what has value, knowing what depreciates in value, what appreciates, and all of that. So my point this evening is, as HR professionals, we need to start from where we are to understand what it is that will really mean value for us. If somebody is comparing buying a car, for instance, of course, I'm not ruling out, the necessity of it. All right. But when we want to check between buying a car and buying a land, for instance, I think the way the financial analyst will, see these two things is probably different from how some other people, HR professionals, especially, will see it. So I think we need to be able to differentiate and then really know what works for us now, what has short-term value, and what will, of course, have longer-term value. So just the addition of my voice in that regard to say, let's be very clear about that. So I'll be that, it's about building financial literacy, like the subject of today's discussion is. So please, let's make sure that we understand that very well. And then with that, we'll be able to plan our future and plan our finances. So thank you very much again to the facilitator. And thanks, Prof, for the opportunity to also speak.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very excellent contributions from my brother. Thank you so much. Tommy, there's a question in the chat box. It's not directly related to the subject matter, but because part of your conversations went there, I will encourage you to respond. You can read it out. It's by Elias. You may wish to read out.
I've seen it. I've seen it, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So the question says that I have a background from IT, then due to work situation, I found myself in HR. How can I build structure, blending this skill to holistic parts? Currently, I work as an HR generalist. Thank you. All right, so thank you so much, Elias. So I believe the first place you need to understand is, and this is why I'd like to have a conversation with people, because sometimes people just go to school to just pick up a course for picking its sake so that I can say, oh, I went to school, right? The beauty of the world is that there is no demarcation in courses anymore. And this is what I mean. There is a value that every course can give to every other skill. And I'll give a typical example. So whilst in school, as a business administration student, you learned MIS, right? Why? Management Information System, right? Because either you like it or not, IT is still very valuable, right? Even in every other distance. How is IT valuable? There's HR Cloud, right? How about we begin to look at, yes, you're an HR generalist. HR would need a cloud database where they can store up data rather than just keeping things manual. Especially if you are working in a company where they haven't fully digitalized their cloud. You can decide to do that and be an HR data administrator, right? And from there, learn further skills around data analytics and HR also, to merge it together to be strong and rooted in HR data analytics and HR data analyst, and begin to build your career path towards that path. Why? Because as you grow upward, right, towards the managerial level, we are more concerned about data than conversational topic. And sitting in the place of data management, and being able to interpret those data, you have the art of management. So it is still possible to merge it, right? So it's still very, very possible. So you can always reach out to me personally. You can reach out to that Dr. Yemi. You can reach out to us on the group. The HR Mentorship Group is a group that is open for all to seek guidance, and everyone is willing to reach out and assist and help you out. So the fact that you have IT background doesn't mean that HR is totally irrelevant or that the IT is now irrelevant. there would be something in the HR, right, that you can still marry your IT skill with to still produce good results. Dr. Yemi, sir, you can still add one or two things to what I said, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sumi. That's very, very spot on. In fact, there's a whole subdomain in HR, like you alluded to, which is HRIS, Human Resource Information Systems. And because of the increased request for digitization in the workplace, and also AI, artificial intelligence, all right, machine learning, all these skills sit on your primary education, or which is, what do you call it? Management information systems or IT. So I think you are well primed and positioned. So just take the time to ensure you understand and appreciate the HR value chain. It will jump at you how across the intersections of this value chain, how you can use IT, ICT, MIS to address some of the problems, especially in your organization. It can be something around automation, digitalization, and so on and so forth. So if you are not certified HR, please get it so that you understand granularly HR and very easily and almost effortlessly, especially if you are working somewhere. Also look at their pain points, and then you'll be able to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to wrap up. So just let us unmute and thank our facilitator for tonight. That's our last duty for tonight. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate us all. Thank you. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
always having
Tommy.
me, sir.
Thank you
Thank you so
so
much,
much,
sir.
Tommy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me.